Right, so let's jump into this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hi guys, and welcome to Geek Talk, where we talk deep and geek about pianos, keyboards, synthesizers, and music production. And my special guest, once again, Mr. Gareth Jones. Gareth, how are you, sir?
Hi, Vaughn. Good morning. I am reeling, I suppose, like everyone under the new lockdown here in the UK, and devastated actually to to have walked away from the European Union. It's had a real, as an artist, it's had a real effect on me, like right now, because I am trying to put together. Well, I've been invited to take part in a project in France, which I'd love to do. Obviously, things are very complicated now because of COVID-19. I would be allowed to travel if I travel for work. This is all, I need to get some kind of work permit. It's incredibly challenging, to be honest. I've looked at the France website, a French embassy website. There seem to be like 30 different kinds of visas, none of which apply to me. I don't want to bore you too much with this. It is geeky, though, I agree, but it's not. So this is where I'm at. So reeling under lockdown and exit from EU.
Well, I think, Gareth, we're on the same page, whereas we want to focus our attention on positivity and creativity and creating music and stuff. It is a reality that whether you're for Brexit or against it, it does affect us badly. And we don't want to turn this political, but I just think this was one of the dumbest things. I don't want to say anyone who voted out was dumb. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is I just think I personally didn't vote. And the reason I didn't vote was because I heard good arguments to stay and I heard good arguments to leave. So I was really on the fence. And I really feel that if they had a second referendum, a lot of people would have said, let's stay, because I don't know. And this may turn out to be the best thing for us. I don't know. But the way I'm looking at it right now, because, with me running my business with European partners and stuff, it is a real headache that we're having to deal with.
Well, exactly, brother. And that's why I'm telling a little personal story, really. I know that we can go deep and families can get split up and couples divorce over this, and I don't want to go there. But I just wanted to share with you and the musician community that you're a part of that it's unavoidable for me. 4 days after we left the union, suddenly I hit a red tape nightmare and huge complication. And it's kind of, I won't say I'm not going to let it shut me down, but it's hindering my ability to do what I do best, which is to collaborate and network with people all over the world. So.
Yeah, it is exactly that. It's just, and it's a double whammy. It's not only COVID, but it's, anyway, we're all in the same.
Yeah, sorry, we're in the same boat. Yeah. Plus, of course, it's my job.
Yeah, exactly. We're all in the same boat. And these are realistic conversations from which there is no escape, really.
There you go.
There you go. Anyway, Gareth, let's talk onto the nice things.
How are you, Vaughn? How are you doing?
I'm good. I've had the same sort of little hiccups with, because obviously Brian Griffin and I have our poster print business.
Yeah.
And, you all, whenever something happens, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Fast forward, we are now at that bridge, and there are so many hurdles and complications and ways round. But anyway, as a positive person, I do believe we are going to get there in the end. But Gareth, I've kept you very busy with, and we'll talk about this in the end. I want to just say to the community, Gareth has been spending all his time filling in the postcards, which are now available through his Electrogenetic Bandcamp page. We'll talk about that on the back end of this video, where you can get this rare opportunity to get a hand-painted postcard from Gareth Jones himself. Now, Gareth, I believe you've actually run out of stock.
I've run out of stock, yeah, which is super nice. Thank you to everyone who's supported the project by purchasing a postcard. I had the postcard idea a long time ago, actually. and I've always loved sending postcards. I'm going to take a couple of hours or so tomorrow to paint some more postcards, which I really enjoy doing anyway. But yeah, it's delightful. I've run out of stock, and I need to get the paints out and enjoy doing some more painting.
Well, thank God it's watercolor and not smelly colors, because Mrs. Jones would not be happy about that, would she?
Well, watercolor's a beautiful medium for me.
Anyway, guys, we will talk about that in the back end of this video, how you can actually get involved and get yourself a postcard sent directly to you from Gareth Jones himself. And we also want to talk a little bit more about the Electrogenetic, Gareth Jones's debut album, which is now being crowdfunded for a vinyl release. But Gareth, let's look at, you're at home today. So are you going to, or are we calling it Studio B, formerly Studio B, it's now called Studio G, is that right?
Well, I'm flexible. Yes, my Studio B, obviously. Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, obviously Gareth has his studio, which is called the Art Lab in the Strong Room, which has been there for many years, an iconic studio where he's recorded a lot of iconic artists, but he also has his home setup. And I think that's what we want to talk about today, Gareth. Are you going to be doing the bulk of your work from home over the lockdown?
I'm flexible, actually. I am allowed to travel to work where that's essential. And some of the projects it's essential that I'm at in my studio at Strong Room. I am mixing a record at the moment for a friend called Anders Parker that's nearly finished, but it's all made in Studio A with my analog summing chain and tape machine. And in order to finish the record, I need to be in the room at Strong Room, which I enjoy. It's a 10-kilometer cycle ride away. It's nice exercise. We're blessed with reasonable weather. So that's all good. And I enjoy being there. But I did find that it was extremely creative for me being in my bedroom studio at home, which is kind of gradually expanding the longer I'm in here. There's a small modular rack behind me, and also there's one on my right now, which I bought from the studio, which I've been, obviously it's all modular, so it all interconnects. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making more music here as well. I don't know why. It's a different kind of, I guess every space we make music in influences the music, right? Or influences our headspace. So this is a different space. There's no commute involved. It's easy for me to try something late at night after I've had dinner perhaps, and whereas I wouldn't necessarily go back to my studio at Strong Room to try something out. There's a different atmosphere. Also, I have less gear here. So there's, in a way, obviously I got like about 1 million plugins, but a lot of the work I do is with hardware. The composite, the musical work I do, the writing and the co-writing that I do, I like to use hardware. So the fact that I got 1 million plugins doesn't really, it still feels like quite simple. I've got Ableton sitting there or Logic or whatever I'm using, and I use that more or less as a tape recorder in the initial phase. So just as a pure recorder, I should say, to tape. And yeah, so it's great. I enjoy it very much. I had this experience, as I said, in the first lockdown, and gradually I keep adding more stuff to my little home setup. But that's good.
That's good. As I say, sometimes it's good to have less gear because it just helps you focus. Because sometimes too much choice is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everyone's got a lot of choice these days. We just have to push through. I push through the choices. Actually, now I've done a couple of the most recent things I've done in here for Spiritual Friendship, my project with Nick Hook. We are revisiting some work we started, I think, about 3 years ago in Asheville, North Carolina, at the Moog Soundspace, where we did some drones. Mm-hmm. We discovered for us personally the drone, actually, and Nick and my angle on drone music is very synth oscillator based. Obviously, it's a huge arena, the drone world, and we're novices in it. But and many people use all kinds of different instruments, but we're very focused on electronics. And we realized we had completed 5 drones in our series of 7 drones, which are reflecting and honoring the 7 chakras. And so for the end of the year and the start of the new year, and, pushed by the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, we created remotely 2 more drones that were missing from the set of 7. I started one and Nick overdubbed it, and he started the other one and I overdubbed it. And that has been a wonderful experience and a really great start to the new year. And not too harmonically complicated, obviously. It's one note, basically. One note in the harmonic series. But we're very delighted and excited by our drones. We are using them to launch a new sub-label on Calm and Collect, which is kind of feels like a bit aggro monkey records now, Vaughn, because Electrogenetic appears on both labels. Yeah. But Nick is starting a new sub-label, a kind of an ambient label called Calm.
Okay.
And we're hoping to, and we're going to launch that label with this set of 7 drones.
Well, as I said, Gareth, it's always so interesting talking to you, and I haven't told my community yet, but they will be delighted to see another video with you, because you're one of those people, you're so interesting to talk to, and there's so many subjects. But I would like to have a chat with you and Nick one day about the spiritual friendship collaboration, because I really like your approach to music. It's really, as some people would say, out there. You're certainly nowhere in the mainstream, and I'm always fascinated by these type of collaborations. So please, let's have a chat with you and Nick sometime.
That'd be great. We can coordinate that perhaps around the upcoming Spiritual Friendship 4 release. That is one of the next projects that I'm intending to complete in Studio B, actually, since we're talking about Studio B.
Even better, Gareth. And what I'm trying to bring awareness to in my humble way is, through my humble channel, is Gareth Jones as the artist, and not just Gareth Jones as the producer, as most people know you as. So I think this is a really fascinating chapter of your life, really, where I think you want to focus, not exclusively, but you want to spend a lot of your time on your own material.
I love collaboration, and it's always, I've been blessed with many of the wonderful artists that I've been able to work with over decades. And I've had a great time collaborating with them and helping them create their own records from an engineer and from a producer point of view. And that's something that's ongoing, actually. I am working right now on a Erasure project that I can't really say more about because it would be rude. But that is also something that has partly taken place in Studio B as well as in Studio A. So my work with other artists, and as I spoke about the project I've been invited to take part in France, is helping someone else mix a record. That's kind of a big part of my life. It's really creatively important to me, and it's also my day job and my evening job. But in the last few years, I've kind of found a voice for my own music and musical collaborations, and that's obviously a source of profound joy and discovery and insight and a wonderful adventure. And I explore new areas in collaboration and on my own, and it pushes me to grow. So it's a great. I was chatting to my manager just before Christmas about it and telling him about some of the upcoming records we've got, and he said, "Wait a minute! Like 5 years ago, you hadn't released a single record, and now you've got like 3 more coming out this year, and you've made 8 or 10 of your own records." So yeah, things change, man, and that's great.
They do, and I think we realize as we get older, time becomes more precious, doesn't it?
Yeah, anyone, your granddad will tell you that. Yeah, for sure. You don't need me to tell you that. But yes, time races by, doesn't it, Vaughn, as we get older? So, but that's, I don't know. That's one of the huge challenges of my life is time management, and everyone's life, I'm sure, actually. And I feel some people deal with it a lot better than I do, and it's something I continually still struggle with to realize that it counts where I place my attention is what happens. And if I place my attention on, scrolling through Twitter, then then an hour of my life goes away scrolling through Twitter. And that's fine if that's what I want to do. But if actually what I want to do is make a piece with my modular and I sit there scrolling through Twitter, that's obviously not helpful. So it's, one of the big challenges of my life. I don't beat myself up about it. I just try to get better at it.
Well, they say there's that saying, energy flows where attention goes. And I think that's very, very true.
It is. Yeah, it's extremely true.
Gareth, talking about spaces, obviously you've got the art lab, which is obviously in the strong room, and you've got your studio B there, but you've obviously worked in some iconic spaces like Hansa. You obviously heard the dreadful news about Puk Studios that burned down.
When did Puk burn down?
Did you not hear about this?
Is that super recent?
This is super recent. This must have been within the last 4 days or so.
Oh no, I didn't hear. I hope no one was hurt.
No. You see, and this just goes to show you're not focused on the news, which is a good thing, really, because you've just highlighted what you said. You're not sort of browsing the news and things like that. You're trying to keep yourself focused. But and I'm very much the same. But that just appeared on my feed, and people emailed me and they said, "Vaughn, did you hear about Puk Studios burning down?" And I thought that was very, very sad. It's a great creative space. A lot of great records were made there. Were you ever involved there? Did you ever go there?
Yeah, once. Sorry, I shouldn't. I mean, I don't. It's not for me to speculate.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that no one was hurt in the fire. Insurance ? Is the first thing that comes to my mind. That was a heavily insured facility, I bet, and very hard to make money in a. This is not. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, obviously, but that's the kind of mind I've got. I'm afraid that's straight away. I think what, but also terrible loss of some legendary equipment. I worked there once with. Briefly, I worked there doing some mixing. Oh no, I visited actually once. I think. Depeche worked with Dave Bascom there, didn't they, for Music for the Masses? I went up to visit because I was living in Berlin, North Denmark's not that far. I must have got the train up or something. I think it's a long time ago. I can't remember. I do remember going to visit, and it's great to say hi to Dave, obviously, and the guys, but also blown away by the facility itself, which was at that time. And probably still, probably what last year was a legendary. It's one of those, what I call like a state of the art facility. You walk into some facilities and you think actually they've built that with no real concern. Probably there was a concern for the budget, but it's built at the best level that it can be built at. And I've obviously over many years I've been in a few facilities like that. And it has a special atmosphere, not just for the wonderful bands that go through there, but also because of the vibe of the architects and the acousticians and the wiremen and the electricians and the sound engineers and the assistants and everyone who's put together this incredible facility. They had the biggest loudspeakers in the wall that I'd ever seen in my life. It was like the normal loudspeakers, the giant in the wall, like 4x12 Questheads or something. A meter across. I mean, it's obviously well documented on the Puk website, but that was incredible. I don't think I was experienced enough to fully appreciate the monitor system when I worked there for a week, actually, to be honest. But It was amazing. Nice pool as well, I seem to remember. Nice swimming pool.
It didn't I don't know, I'm just I because the name Puck, didn't Francois Kevoken mix Violator in Puck, or was it
Oh, I
recorded?
don't know, man. I don't know where he mixed. I don't know. Maybe you know better. You know better than me. We can obviously
Well,
just
well,
look
well,
it up.
well I think we realized this, Gareth. I think we realized that when we were on that live chat with shout out to Depeche Mode Global last time, how these fans seem to know more than you and I put together. They're just so into the details, aren't they?
Well, the details are important, you know.
Yeah.
And hey, how great was it when all these credits? Not to bang on about it too much, but I'm a huge fan of music credits, which is one of the reasons that I loved vinyl. And even CDs to some extent, although I do find the print on CDs pretty hard to read credit-wise quite often, even when I was younger. But the fact, you know, my personal voyage through discovering new music before I even worked in a recording studio was very much about reading the credits on the back of the vinyl, where you say, "Oh, look, that bass player played on that project. Oh, look, they recorded the drums in that studio with that engineer." All this kind of stuff is super important to understanding the story. I think understanding the story of popular recorded music.
Yeah.
So yeah, great. It'll be on the vinyl. It'll say on the vinyl where it was mixed, which is great. Which it probably doesn't say on the Spotify feed. That's my point.
That is why we love vinyl, and we'll get more into that in a moment.
And Discogs. That's why I love Discogs actually, because it does all the people, and that seems to be a great resource for credits.
I see the I don't know if it's your connection or my connection. You occasionally you tend to freeze for a while, and we miss what you're saying. But I will let you know if we miss anything. Okay, so I want to speak to you a little bit about modular synths now, Gareth, because obviously you did your you did your time in the BBC, as we talked about in the previous video. You talked about your love for the recorded medium, headphones, speakers, and things like that. And then, of course, sampling was something that you were really one of the forerunners of experimentation. But now, when did you because you're really into modular synths these days, so when did you sort of get started with mods?
Well, I got started in the 80s, being around some great electro pop bands, and Daniel Miller, of course. Although I don't know if Daniel had when I first met him, he probably didn't have any modulars actually, but we did have patchable synths like the ARP 2600, which will make a sound without a patch wire in it, but you can extend the palette by patching wires in. But my first modular was 100M, Roland 100M. I bought a few, about 10 modules, 2 racks I had in the 80s. Pretty simple, really big modules, and a pretty simple setup that I didn't really connect with. I mean, of course I used it and I loved it, and it was what I had, and I carried it about with me in a massive flight case, and I did stuff with it. But I wasn't happy when I sold it, and I still don't regret having sold it. I'm quite happy that I don't have my 100M system. I think if you want 100M sound, I think Roland themselves, Behringer, I think, do a really good clone in Eurorack. But anyway, so there we go. I put my toe in the water with modular then, and that was it. I think the whole flow of the whole idea of plugging pieces of equipment together in order to make a sound is kind of central to all the work that I've done in a recording studio throughout my life. And it's one of the great fascinations and joys of having loads of boxes around that all change the sound and make sound in a different way, is kind of connecting them up in different orders. So when I started working in recording studios, I felt my instrument was the studio. Studios seemed quite complicated in those days. and there seemed much more of a division between people who could play the studio and people who could play a piano. Whereas now, with the wonderful explosion of DAW technology in computers, everyone's got a wonderful recording studio in their on their phone, if they want, in their laptop or whatever, on their computer. So many people have broadened their skill set, and most musicians now can, if you like, play the studio. But I came from this background where that's what I felt that I did. I was, if I was attached to a band for the process of making a record, and they played all their instruments and I played the studio, which involves a lot of patching things together to make new sounds. So the workflow is when Dieter Döpfer revolutionized modern electronic music by adopting the Eurorack standard, everything changed. We've spoken about this before, Vaughn, as well. I don't know if on video. The fact that the modern Eurorack stuff it's not cheap, but it's kind of affordable. Yes. And it's repairable. Yes. I had a recent experience where my DPO from Make Noise, I'm a huge Make Noise fan. Shout out to Make Noise, please. They've been such inspirational instrument makers for my personal musical development. But my DPO from Make Noise recently went down, and the fix was very simple. I emailed tech support at Make Noise and they said, post it to us, we can fix it. And so I did, and they did. This is important to me because I don't really have the budget to maintain huge vintage synth systems. I don't have the budget to buy them, and I don't have the budget to maintain them. So there's a budgetary aspect to this. There's a compactness to the Eurorack format that I personally like very much. And there's the other big thing about the workflow for me and everyone, I'm sure, who uses the format is that you can't really save any of the sounds. So you have to record them if you want to preserve them in any way.
Yeah, it's a moment, and it's very difficult to working indoors. As one of your things, Gareth, you always say is it's getting shit done, getting stuff done. And I think when you're working in that way with the modulars, you are committed to, you actually have to get it done because you can't save it and come back after tea because it'll be gone, so to speak.
Well, it might last till after tea, brother, but it doesn't last when I take the cables out.
Well, that's what I mean.
To move on to the next thing. Sure. That's the patch sitting there for days. Yeah. When I did the Mercury as my messenger from Electrogenetic, that was the basic improvisation was done over Christmas a couple of years ago, and the patch sat there for 2 weeks, with small tweaks. And in the end, I felt, okay, I've performed an improvisation that I can build on, and then I could take the patch down, but I could never get it back. I could never go back there. I don't know if it's even possible. I'm certainly not that skilled. And it's also not really my interest. My interest is to make something and move forward. I did that. I was very inspired by Maestro Riccardo Muti, who conducted the Vienna Philharmonic for the New Year's Day concert that I always listen to on Radio 3 from Vienna every year. Special concert this year, obviously, because there's no audience. But he spoke very boldly about the importance of music in our lives. And I created I'm in the process of creating a modular piece around his speaking. And that entailed building a bunch of different ideas that I recorded. And I think I've got enough now, and I need to spend a sensible day editing to finish the piece. But that's a big part of my modular work as well, is editing, especially when I build multi-track pieces. I've done some wonderful improvisation collaborations with a good friend, which is going to come out this year, actually. And I can't steal anyone's thunder by talking about that now either. But the editing wasn't that big a part of it, because the whole manifest professor that do improvisations and more or less take them as they are. And if they were good, use them, and if they weren't good, don't use them. And that worked really well. But when I'm working on my own and or collaborating with Spiritual Friendship or with other artists, I made another record in the last lockdown with a young woman that's also going to come out this year. Then I'm working with layers, so editing becomes more a part of it. And quite often for me, that might be I might record a modular patch through half of the piece and then realize that I only need it in 25% of the piece, or I want to repeat 2 parts of it. It's reduction. A lot of my editing is about removing stuff that I don't need.
Yes. I think, Gareth, we talked about this last time, like songwriters like me, and I start off with a melody and a structure, and I build everything on that. Whereas from what I'm understanding from you is you'll sit down with a modular synth and you'll just create a patch, and then you will get into the flow or whatever and record that session and then just put it away. And then fast forward to a later date, you've got all these sections of work, and then you sort of put them all together. Is that how you work?
I'm more likely. I rarely combine. I work.
You're very.
There's no rules, right? So anything's flexible.
You're very abstract. Yeah.
But if there's an abstract nature to some of the compositions for sure. Mm-hmm. But I rarely combine a canvas from Tuesday with a canvas from a month on Wednesday.
I see. Okay.
Those would be 2 separate pieces.
Okay, that's my.
They might get over that. It might be that on the Tuesday I come back to the Tuesday piece and then I think, oh, actually, I could put a really nice sub bass on that, or this one needs a new beat, or whatever. But I rarely collage in that way of creating pieces on, massively different moods and environments and then collaging them together. Although chatting to you about it, that is an interesting idea. Yeah, it might be something I might pursue that because I'm very interested in collage.
That's quite an interesting idea if you think of it, Gareth. So imagine you just for some reason, because obviously let's think when you did Electrogenetic, which we'll talk about later, is obviously you had a vision and a flow for it. But now talking about this new way of that I sort of conjured up, or what I was saying now was, imagine you just do these sections. You go, okay, I'm just going to do something now and not actually have any goal for where it's going to end up. I'm just going to put myself in this moment, do a modular patch. And then what you do, you save that over a period of 6 months or whatever. And then you go, okay, well, I'm going to put all those together and see how they work. I mean, that's probably an interesting way to work, if I'm making sense.
It's certainly an experiment that I will make. And it's kind of inspired by this conversation where you kind of misunderstood how I'd been working in the past.
Yes.
So I love that. It's like jumping on a misconception or something, and say, oh, wait a minute, there's something in that. I did a wonderful piece. I have a project with my friend Christopher Bono. We have a project called Nous Alpha. We've recorded 1 album. We've just finished. The second album is also now finished and mastered, and we're just about to press vinyl for that and release that soon. One of the pieces on that project was made a little bit like that, in the sense of it's composed of a number of elements, rather like the album's called A Walk in the Woods, but rather like a walk in the woods where you turn a corner and suddenly you see a new vista, or you go up a hill and there's a lake, or there's a snow cap, something totally different appears. Yeah. And we adopted that as a modus operandus, a kind of a template. Our template for composing this piece was to do it exactly like that. A discrete minute. Right, you've got a minute, make something. Okay, now I've got a minute, make something. Yeah. And then we went through the whole piece, and then we thought, okay, overdubs. And then we went backwards through the piece, and Chris overdubbed on my minute, and I overdubbed on his minute. And the result is really profound. I'm really, it's called Fox Hollow, that piece. I'm
Okay.
really, really so pleased with it, because it's kind of very minimal, and it's like hard cutting between different sections, and
Mm.
it works. But that's made in a flow,
Yeah.
Vaughn.
Yeah.
It's made in a day, if you like, really, probably, or a day and a half or something. It's made, but the idea that we've discovered just here now in conversation is more like doing jump cuts between pieces that were made at very different times, right? That's
Yeah,
what I'm
so
talking about.
you're actually
Yeah,
you're combining completely different
yeah,
atmospheres together, which
yeah,
are quite in conflict with each other, but in that conflict you find a way to manifest it in a musical way, if that makes any sense.
yeah, yeah. And Fox Hollow is like that. The sections are extremely discontiguous,
Hmm.
but it flows as a piece, of course, because it's made by two musicians, you know. But
Well,
yeah,
Gareth, I'm hoping that these conversations with you will and my community will hopefully spark the interest in my community to focus in on the music you've done. And because I mean, I myself, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know any of your collaborations until I met you. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping that this way we can bring awareness to your collaborations and your original music.
well, that's super nice, dude. And also, I hope that our conversations about process are inspirational to your community, our community, whose interest we've hopefully holding at the moment. You know, because I think these are deep issues. You know, there are these very deep questions about structure and how we work are really profound and creative. You know, big picture, I suppose, blue sky thinking, big picture, whatever. I don't want to get too Silicon Valley 1990 on everyone, but it's that kind of big picture stuff is super important in the way that, you know, if you're making a painting, you can decide to study Rembrandt for 10 years and be an extraordinarily gifted representational painter, or you can throw buckets of paint at a wall for 10 years. I mean, these are big
Mm.
differences of approach, and they have big differences in outcome, but they might all be profoundly spiritual and connect with different people. So that's what I hope as well. Yes, it's wonderful if people discover some of the awesome music that I've made with my friends,
Mm.
but also it's a great pleasure for me always to encourage people to encourage. I don't know if people need my encouragement, but to inspire people to try looking at to have done otherwise, and hence go on an adventure where they explore new territory, because that's what we're all trying to do all the time. If we're not exploring new territory, it's boring.
Well, my friend, I'll be pleased to tell you that the conversations I've been having with you over the last few months have had a profound effect on a lot of people in the community, not only, you know, geeks and stuff, but also just music fans. So keep going, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. That's the idea.
I'm talking about collaborations. I don't know if you've heard it, and these are two of my two of my favorite artists of the last, well, of my a whole Vaughn psyche would be Martin Gore and Vince Clarke. And of
Yeah,
course, when they did that collaboration, VCMG, I don't know if you heard it. It was a
yeah. Of course, I heard it. I got it on vinyl.
yeah, a techno record. And what was fascinating about that, Gareth, was obviously because I've studied Vince Clarke and I've studied Martin Gore so much. It was fascinating. Whenever I listened to that record, I would go, because they kind of worked as you would do with Nick or someone else you're collaborating with, and you have your ideas, and then Nick will add something, and you add overdubs to each other's ideas. And fascinating listening to that VG Vince Clarke Martin Gore record was, when I listened to it, I went, that sounds like Martin Gore. And then I go, oh, and that sounds like Vince Clarke. You know what I mean? Because they have their styles, and there were certain atmospheres that came across that I went, that's definitely Martin Gore that did that. And then other parts I'd go, that's definitely Vince Clarke. Although I could be wrong, but it is a fascinating way of listening to it.
I don't know how that record was made. My suspicion is that they didn't meet, that it's made remotely.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, it was made remotely. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So that in that sense, it's nothing like how Nick and I work. Nick and I have recently stuck a toe in the water for the first time to try and collaborate remotely with this drone work that I was just chatting about. Partly because of lockdown and basically, I would say because of lockdown and COVID, Nick and I, for the first time since we met over 10 years ago, in 2020, we didn't physically meet. And we thought, hang on, I mean, we need to cross this bridge. All the work I've done with Nick has been predicated upon us being together in the same room at the same time.
Gotcha.
We've never worked on any of the projects separately. Even if we've started in the same room, we've put it to one side until we've got back together to work again together on it, which is essential, I think, for both of us, because it's only when, in the way that spiritual friendship's gone so far, it's only when we're sitting in the same room that we move forward at a pace fast enough for the other one not to get bored. Yes. Because we're both pretty hyper, and I definitely don't want Nick to get bored. So I might try an idea. We generally work around one Ableton session. Shout out to Ableton. Thank you, Ableton, for making awesome stuff. It's life-changing. And Ableton is a language that Nick and I both speak, which is why we use it. I'm also a big Logic Audio user, as you know. But I use Ableton with Chris as well because it's a language, again, that we both speak. A lot of people speak Ableton and Pro Tools or Ableton and Logic. So we've got one rig that we can both use. And a lot of hardware with Nick. So I jump on the computer for a bit. Pretty quickly, I either do my idea or I step back and say, I don't know, Nick, you do it. Because we really keep things moving, which is how we've been able to get these records done in a reasonably time-efficient manner. We don't generate any, we only spiritual income, of course, we generate. And you can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a wonderful journey, but we don't generate any actual dollars and euros. So we can't afford to spend a year making a record. So the spiritual friendship's been, okay, let's get together for a week. Let's make some stuff. Okay, break. Okay, now let's get together for another week. I'm in America then, Nick. How about we schedule a week where I come to your studio, we finish the record. That's how we've done it. And that's really been made it all so mixed up that I often don't know who did what at the end of it. It would be very difficult for me to go back to Spiritual Friendship 1, or indeed the electronic music improvisations record that I'm so excited about that I made last year with my friend. We don't actually know who made which bit anymore.
I see.
Because it's so it's so in the moment and embedded. We were together. So I just wanted to say that and I have so finishing Spiritual Friendship 4 now. We've had 2 sessions when we were physically together, and now we need to finish it remotely. We can't get together to finish it, and we can't wait until we do get together. So that's going to be a huge experiment for us. We're just gearing up to it now. We started with this kind of warm up with this drones thing, and now we need to get some serious mixing and editing done on the pieces for Spiritual Friendship 4 that are essentially written and nearly done. But getting it over the finish line is going to be tough for us because it's a new thing where we're not going to be in the same room.
You're right, Gareth, actually. And I think there is a certain practicality, because we've talked about this before, about getting shit done, getting stuff done. And I think if you're working remotely, there is the tendency for it to kind of, you can drag it out. You can say, oh, I'm busy this week. But when you've actually got time together and you say, okay, we got a week together, we are going to finish this in a week, it keeps it focused and it makes sure that it gets done. So, and I know you're a bit like Connie Plank in a way, because from what I've read about Connie Plank, he didn't rate himself as a very technical kind of guy. He was more, although I think we disagree with him, but I think he said he was more about the vibe. And I know you, are very much about the vibe and about the moment and about actually being with people.
Colin was a wonderful spirit. I had the great pleasure of working with him and meeting him on a number of occasions. It was a huge inspiration and a wonderful, wonderful man, radiated positivity, creativity, and functionality. He enabled. He was a great enabler as well as being an all-round genius. He was an enabler of other people's genius. So that's really good. Yeah, I mean, this is my background, I suppose. You know, from like when I started making records, people might have 2 weeks. They had 2 weeks in the studio to record and mix an album. You know, so that's what happened because it was limited by budget, and you know, you couldn't really, especially if you were like an indie band, you couldn't really get any more money. You had to get it done in that time. Yes. And so quite early on, I mean, I was terrified by deadlines for many years, and it was only after about 20 years that I realized that the deadlines were my friend, because without deadlines, I wouldn't get anything finished. So now we have to trick ourselves, don't we, with artificial deadlines, especially when we're working remotely. You know? Yes. But it is, as you so rightly say, Vaughn, and that's definitely the case where if Nick and I are in a room together, we've allocated time in one of our studios, which is precious resource anyway, and we've across the Atlantic to be with the other person and paid for an Airbnb. You know, we've allocated time and budget to our creative endeavor. And so it's super important to us that we come out with something that we at least feel reflects the commitment that we've made, you know, which means finishing.
As I say, you know, you talk about that, and obviously there's the cost of being there, and also you're also saying that there's not much monetary return, you know, because you say there's a lot of spiritual return, but you don't get much, you know, monetary return in that. And this is just really something I think artists face the challenge. You know, we talk about artists who, you know, sell out and whatever one's definition of that is, but I think a lot of especially the kind of music that you do, because it is so inspired and so off the wall to some people, I'm always trying to bring awareness to this type of music, and there is a huge market for it. But it's just, you know, a lot of people rant and they say, oh, you know, music is shit these days, and there's no, and I just have to say, no, that's not true. There's a lot more music out there these days. You just need to know where to find it. Do you resonate with that idea?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that's one of the great, one of the great virtues of the Bandcamp and all the other streaming platforms, is that you can bring your music to the world, you know, the next day, essentially. Actually, if we coordinate it right, we can finish a track and then we can get it on Spotify the next day if we've got everything in place ready to go, and that is incredible. But yeah, so there's way more music out there, and super interesting music. And I mean, it's absurd to imagine that we're short of good music. You know, yeah. we have a recorded catalogue that is, you know, I don't know, 70 years more, 100 years nearly, the recorded catalogue. Yeah. And never mind works are being recorded from 1,000 years ago. You know, there's a huge, there's one of my, not exactly regrets, I suppose. This is one of my regrets, that there'll still, when I die, there'll still be so much awesome music for me to hear that I've not heard. You know, it's impossible to keep up, you know.
Gareth, I think it'll be like some kind of cheesy 80s science fiction movie. I believe your spirit will take over the music machine and the collective music mind.
Maybe my version of Valhalla will just be like a huge music library with awesome headphones.
Exactly. You know, I've been getting into a lot of Wendy Carlos recently after you introduced me to it. Obviously, I always knew about Walter, now Wendy Carlos.
Yeah.
But it was only since you talked about Switched on Bach that I really got into that. And it's when you listen to something like Switched on Bach, it's not only an outstanding piece of work, but what makes it even more outstanding, you know, for me as a producer and my 2 cents worth of knowledge about what I do know about music production, it's knowing what was available back then, and to produce something, you know, even to produce that now would have been challenging, but to do it back then when the technology was in its infancy, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Yeah, it's a shed loads of tape editing, right? And
Yeah.
never mind anything else. Masses of musicality and intention and commitment and attention and intention, but also, it's all recorded in bits and stuck together. It's the only way to do it, yeah. So yeah. And yet, when I first heard it, I was very young, but none of that was apparent to me. Like a lot of great art, the technique in the background seemed like almost irrelevant. Many of us that I can still, I suppose I've been watching movies my whole life, so I've got some kind of idea about how movies are made. But still, I can watch a movie and be totally overwhelmed by the story without even beginning to think about all the technique that's gone into telling the story. The same with Switched on Bach and many great records, actually, I think, or many great works of art, is your immediate response is not to marvel at the technique that's gone into it. Yeah. Your immediate response is to engage with your emotional response, an intellectual response to the work of art, and which the message, if there is a message, or the story, or the sonic joy, without having to decode how it was made. But yes, a lot of studio work is. A recent dear friend of mine, a guy called Werner Walter, a flying instructor he is actually, and a neighbor in the same area. He lives quite close to me, and he had for many years was a hi-fi dealer, and he still does a bit. He's deeply interested in vinyl and hi-fi, and I brought him to my Studio A about 4 years ago, just to show him where I hung out and where I worked. And I was working on a mix, and suddenly he's my age. He had a light bulb moment where he could see the level of detail that went into creating a multi-track recording, which he hadn't really understood before. He hadn't really engaged with it. Maybe he'd intellectually understood that these records were put together in the studio, but then when he witnessed it, it was a really interesting moment. It was like what? Of course, kind of thing. It was one of those moments.
Yeah, a eureka moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a wonderful moment. So, am I getting a bit off topic?
No, Gareth. This is absolutely great. This is this is. If you're off topic, then you're on the right channel, because we are known for going off topic. But then again, those who love what we talk about will love us. Will love what we're talking about. So, but as I say, I want to sort of just bring it into Electrogenetic now, because I've with lockdown now and everything, I'm sure hopefully we can get you on again for some future chats. Of course, this is not the end, people.
This is not the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, Gareth, something that I think one of the positive sides to this, I don't want to downplay something that's very serious, but I think this whole coronavirus thing has forced us to work and approach things in different ways. And I'd really like to, I kind of mentioned it on one of our previous chats about, seeing you performing live, possibly in a Zoom setup. And I can assure you there was a lot of interest to that. Some people started jumping on saying, oh, well, where can we buy tickets? When is that? And I was like, hang on. It was just an idea, but that is something you said you are open to doing, and possibly with Nick as well. I think the sky's the limit now, and we are forced now to think differently and creatively until things go back to normal, hopefully.
And that's good. That's really good. I heard, and a lot of people who are fortunate enough to still be surviving the enormous economic impact of the enormous economic impact of the way this virus is affecting our societies and the way that our leaders are responding to it. But those of us who are fortunate enough to be currently surviving it have insight that it's pushed us to work in new ways. I know what it was. I heard someone talking on Radio 3 yesterday. There was a Belfast music festival in 2020 that was still performed, and autumn 2020, no audience, but it was performed and recorded. And this promoter or music manager or whoever he was saying how he'd noticed that the fact that we were in lockdown had forced a certain creativity in many of his friends, where even to the extent where they were thinking completely differently, because in the classical canon there, you might play the same piece on many occasions. The people were being forced to think about their interpretations of the pieces in a different way, partly because they might be presenting them on Zoom, partly because the catastrophic nature of the cataclysm that's going on, the pandemic, has meant they've reevaluated everything about their life that they thought was important or wasn't important.
Yeah.
So it's a fucking shitstorm, but it is. If we can survive it, it's a great opportunity for growth.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think it comes down to that saying, necessity is the mother of invention, and we see that played out perfectly during this time. Gareth, I just want to come on to Electrogenetic now. So guys, any of you or who have just come to this channel now, I'm not going to repeat everything I've said. Links in the description below to all the previous videos. But Gareth has released his first debut album. It was released on September 18th last year under the Calm and Collect record label, and it was available digitally, and I'm going to put the Bandcamp links in the description below. But fast forward to where we are now. We are currently running a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. The link is in the description below, and this is your way to get behind the Indiegogo campaign. The idea of that campaign is to fund Gareth's vinyl so we can get it printed on vinyl. Now, we've got about 2 weeks left in that campaign. Today is the 6th of January, so there's about 14 days left. If you want to get behind this, please jump in and make your support will be appreciated. And the great thing about this is this will be a limited pressing. Every single vinyl will be numbered, hand numbered by Gareth and signed by Gareth himself. And also everyone that adds to this, everyone who pledges and makes this vinyl a reality, your name will be included on the inlay card. This is a very exciting little project. Gareth, you're very excited about your first album and getting it on vinyl now?
It's been a great collaboration with Agro Monkey Records, with you, Vaughn. Thanks for all your help and support with this.
You're welcome.
We are delighted that we've passed our threshold where it looks like it might just about be economically viable to press up the minimum number of vinyls that we can do. So a big thank you to everyone who's already pledged, and it means a lot to us, to Vaughn and me, because it's wonderful to have vinyl. It's wonderful to share the love with other people. It's great that people are talking about the music and, most importantly, listening to it. It's a great experience listening from vinyl. One of my dear friends has bought multiple copies, which I was a bit embarrassed about, to be honest, but thank you. And it's all around. It's been a great journey, actually, being involved with this vinyl push. It's been wonderful for me too, because Calm and Collect is a cassette label, so the cassettes are available there. We have also done a small release on CD, but obviously vinyl is the main one for old school music lovers like me, partly because of the giant 12 by 12 format, the artwork, the quality, the disc itself. It's been a great project, and we know we're going to do it now, because Vaughn's bit the bullet and said, I'm going to push the button, we're doing it. And which is great. Thank you, Vaughn. And but obviously, if anyone else pledges in the last couple of weeks, it's just wonderful for us and wonderful for the vibe, because it edges us that much closer to selling them all out, which we really would love to do.
And they will. And I have to say that this album is really one of the quintessential albums for if you're an electronic music fan, check it out. I will put links in the description below, and in Bandcamp it is available. I want to just quickly read you guys something, Gareth. This is a shout out to one of my Facebook group members. He's called Pablo Daniel Reynoso. And the reason I'm giving him a shout out, Gareth, I saw this message on my Facebook group this morning because I put up a post about the Electrogenetic pledge. And Pablo has written a message. He's gone, I would love to purchase this vinyl album, but I understand that for it to play well, a vinyl needs to be mastered. He's basically saying his concern is he'd love to buy this, but he's worried about the mastering and how it will translate, because as you guys know, obviously you can't take something that is mastered for streaming and just whack it onto vinyl, because you'll have all kinds of problems. But the reason, Gareth, why I loved this comment is because it just shows me that Pablo here is obviously so passionate, or we call him an audiophile. He's so passionate about great sound. So I responded to Pablo and I said, Pablo, I understand your concern. I said, understand that, I'm a professional and Gareth is obviously the man who's not going to accept anything than the best. And that is why Gareth's friend, Alex Wharton from Abbey Road, will be doing the mastering on this record. So if you just want to say a few words about that.
Well, Alex is a total genius, really. And I discovered him through looking at credits on records, old school. I think he did vinyl for King of Limbs, and the vinyl was just outstanding. And I thought, oh, who's this guy? I have not worked with him yet. So then, as soon as I got the opportunity to, I mastered a record with him. I can't even remember what record it was, and we connected at a creative and personal and spiritual level. He's a awesome guy, and he's a great all-round mastering engineer. Anyway, I don't know about a lot of the work that I do is not mastered separately for different formats. I think with a great mastering engineer, you can hit a sweet spot where you can use the mastering for Tidal, for cassette. And I was astonished at the sound of the Electrogenetic on cassette, how good it was, because we didn't know, there was no budget to remaster it for cassette. It had to be just the digital master. The Porter at Sterling Sound did for me, or for me and for Carmen Collect, went straight to cassette, and it worked really well. And one of the things, and that's, I think, one of the things that's that a great mixing engineer and a great mastering engineer can help is making sure, trying to ensure that music sounds good out of all speakers. Sounds good out the phone speaker, and sounds good out the, ridiculously expensive Audeze cans. But certainly the cut is super important for vinyl, and Alex knows how to cut vinyl. It's in his blood. He's Abbey Road is legendary, as we know. Alex has cut so many great vinyls, old and new. He knows how to do it, and it will be awesome. I do want to say though, a friend of mine, and I might have talked to you about this before, Vaughn, Reinhold Heil, mentioned recently that vinyl is the most beautiful way to listen to music. Some of us believe, some of us experience it as the most beautiful way to listen to music. It's not necessarily the best sounding way. It's not closest to the original master tape, or closest to the original 96K 24-bit file, but it's the most. And all vinyl lovers, no one would be pledging for vinyl if they didn't love vinyl anyway. All vinyl lovers know this. Vinyl, there's a beauty in listening to a record on vinyl that's very, very special to us. And of course, my vinyl sounds great in my life. I've got some great vinyl decks and great systems to play vinyl, but I can also play Tidal in great quality as well. So So, but it's a different experience, right? The needle going on the record, the fact that you're committing probably to spending 25 minutes of your life sitting in front of the speakers, listening to this thing you've just put on. It's about beauty, and one of my friends said the other day, I don't know, he was listening to vinyl. He said, I don't know, it was the test pressings actually. We were both listening to our test pressings of this record we've just made, and it sounded great. I said to him, it sounds like it was made for vinyl, this record, because we're indebted to 60s experimental electronic music, and playing it off vinyl was a magical experience. And my friend said, well, I don't know if it's just psychological, but I agree with you. It was an incredible experience. My wife loved it. And I said, music is about emotions and the heart. It is psychology.
Yeah,
there's no such thing as just psychological with music. If it feels awesome, it fucking is awesome. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I can bang on about this for hours, but there you go. Vinyl, not necessarily the best sounding format. If you want the best sounding format, you have to go to Bandcamp, where the 96K is available to purchase. Sadly, Carmen Collect didn't manage to get the 96K onto Tidal. But you can get it at Bandcamp. But if you want the most beautiful way, perhaps, as a vinyl lover, to listen to music, then we're now, thanks to Vaughn and all his hard work, we're now able to offer you the most beautiful way, we think, to listen to it, which is off that black disc.
Absolutely. You perfectly said there, Gareth. And also, if I could just say on a closing matter on vinyl, and we can go on, we can praise it for ages, but it's not only these, sniffing the sleeve and taking the vinyl out and putting it down.
Sniffing the sleeve, did you say?
Yeah, I just love to smell them, but it's like,
okay, well, here we go.
Now, but it's like, and it's when you put the needle down and you hear that crackle, and it's that anticipation, just waiting for the first note to hit. You don't get that with digital, because it's kind of like just goes straight into it. So.
Sure, absolutely. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah. So Pablo, just to put your mind at ease there, yes, the mastering for the vinyl cutting has been factored into this, and we've got one of the best vinyl cutters in the world will be seeing to this record to ensure that it sounds as superb as it deserves to. And Gareth, I want to thank you once again, my friend, for your time. I really love talking to you. As I say, just leaving the camera going, we could go for hours. But as I say, I'd love to get you back on again, just to catch up and talk about. I don't think we necessarily need a subject. I think it's nice to just flow like this.
Great. I enjoy talking to you as well, Vaughn. Obviously, you know that, and you're my record company. You tell me what to do, I do it, brother.
Bless you. Yeah, your next record, I want a Justin Bieber type record. How's that?
No, I didn't mean that. But anyway, yeah, it's great to chat. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Postcards and vinyl available.
Yes, I just want to say a quick one, guys. You can look at in the description below. Once again, these are the postcards which Gareth hand paints himself, and they are delivered to you directly to your door. Now, these are available from his Bandcamp site. All the links. Oh, is that a new one?
This is the only one that I've kept of the first run.
Yeah,
I thought I should just keep one for me,
And I just want to emphasize to the community, as you can see, have a look at the one that Gareth's holding up. Gareth, you'll just have to say something so the camera switches over to you.
Oh, do I? Here we go. Have a look at mine.
Okay.
There we go.
Right, and if you look at mine, mine's completely different now. So obviously, because these are completely hand painted, this is not something that's been painted and then copied. Gareth actually puts these all on a big sheet, and they're hand painted. They're all cut into a postcard size. So you're actually receiving something completely unique.
Yeah, and I think that's important. It does say that on the Bandcamp page. I didn't want anyone to get attached to the image they saw on the Bandcamp. I have underlined that everyone's different. So, but I love them all. Otherwise, there's been a couple that I didn't make it, that I didn't send out. I looked at them, I thought, no, I can't send those. But that's fine. A small bit of editing, but in general, I love them all.
A lot of orange in there, Gareth. You do like the orange. Orange is like the color of creativity and electrogenetic, I see.
It is, yeah. And it's the color of the robes of many monks in
right.
the eastern part, what I think of as the East.
Yes,
On this globe. Obviously, the globe is a circle, so there is no East, but I think of it as the East. But it's a very important color to me. In my journal, I highlight spiritual insights always in orange.
Oh, right. And one more thing, guys, which I started was I tagged myself holding a photo I tagged a photo of myself holding a postcard, and I've requested, and a few people have already, you take a photo of yourself holding the postcard and you tag yourself Electrogenetic, and then you email that photo to Gareth directly at info@electrogenetic.com. And then what Gareth is going to do is he's going to compile a collage, and everyone whose photo is submitted, your photo will be included on that collage. How long is this going to go on? Well, until Gareth decides, Vaughn, I'm done making postcards. But for the short term, at least.
You know what I thought, Vaughn, about the time frame? Yeah, and I guess that's it. It could stop at any time. But I thought it might be nice to keep it going, to keep them available until the vinyl is released.
Okay.
That seemed like, to me, that might be like a good cutoff point to say, well, there you go. I'll keep the postcards available until we release the vinyl. And when the vinyl is released, then we can move on. That's a kind of drawing a line, isn't it? In some ways, we can move on to the next project.
And that's great. As I say, guys, get behind the vinyl campaign now. Your name will be on the inlay card, and it is a limited run. So,
and if I may say, Vaughn has decided, as Agro Monkey Records, that we should do a lottery of anyone who sends the pictures to me for the little collage I'm going to do on the website. We're going to do a lottery, right, Vaughn? And pick someone at random, and Vaughn is then going to give them a signed vinyl copy of the record.
Yes, and you may even get a personalized message sent from Gareth from his phone to you. So we'll talk about that. But the whole thing I think is very important is the message of Electrogenetic is it's a spiritual thing. It's and the whole thing about this campaign is really just to build the awareness around Electrogenetic, and that's all that I want. And I'm sure that's all that you also want, Gareth.
That's absolutely so true. Thanks for underlining that. That's what the postcards was about, really. I just like the idea of the postcards with the rubber stamp, even just going through the postal system. It seems like spreading the love. I just want to try and spread the love around the world.
And Gareth, on that note, I love having you on the channel. I love talking to you, and I want to thank you so much for your time once again. And yeah, we'll keep in touch, and let's have a chat at your next earliest possible convenience. I really appreciate your time.
Lovely to talk to you as always. Wishing everyone peace, love, and understanding.
Gareth, thank you so much. See you again, brother.